Hello, this is Neil, the art instructor at masterpaintnow.com and top art instructor at udemy.com. At my website, you can find tons of drawing tutorials and painting tutorials, that is digital painting tutorials. Right, so let's get started in this video. What is this video all about? Well, this video is a bonus video to my how to draw manga, bases, and hair. And the student asked in that course on Udemy, hey, what are your settings in Manga Studio 5 for your pencils and stuff like that, and your document settings and things like that. And so I'm going to quickly go through that for you guys here. And also, these are things I'm going to go through in this video. I'm going to show you my tools like the pen and pencil, what their settings are. I'm going to show you my dock settings and the paper and all that. I'm going to show you just quickly how to use these tools and kind of some benefits to them and things you can do with them. And then I'm going to show you, or I'm going to just explain to you why I prefer Manga Studio 5 over Photoshop. And I've been using Photoshop for 17 years, so that's a really big statement to make. First thing is I'll show you how to open a new document. We'll just quickly do this. Go to File, New, and then you'll notice that up here with presets, I'm going to go to A4 350 dpi. Automatically opens this manga draft setting here, and this is good for if you're going to be printing. And I'll explain this later, maybe in my manga crash course. What this is used for is printing, but basically this inner side square here gives you the most safe area to draw in. The next area up here is some of that might be clipped off, so you don't want too much important information there. And then as you get out here, this is going to definitely be clipped off, but you can still draw all the way out to the edge there. Just know that that's going to be clipped off when the page is cut down to size. So anyway, that's that. Turn that off. The next thing is paper color. I have it checked. Click on this. I like to choose a paper color. Rather than have it be pure white way up here, I notice if I have it down about here, no matter what color I pick, whether, I'm not going to use a really bright color, but more towards this gray area down here. I can use like a brownish color or kind of a bluish color are the two I usually use. And this just kind of simulates more of actual paper that you're looking at rather than like this really bright screen. A really bright white screen isn't natural to look at. When you're in a room, you never have so much light on your paper. Even if it's a white piece of paper, it never quite is white. It's more like a grayish color because the light isn't hitting it so brightly. And so it's just easier on the eyes to watch. Next, you go to View, and then you go to Pixel Size. The reason why I do that is because I like to start my sketches small. And the reason why I start my sketches small is because I can have more control over what it is I'm looking at, what it is I'm seeing. And this will allow me to draw whatever it is I'm drawing. Like that, and then I can take that sketch and blow it up and make it bigger. And I'd probably maybe sketch a little bit bigger than that, but it's really quick and fast. You can get these thumbnail sketches down really, really quickly, and then you can come in here and you can blow that up and make it bigger. So if I wanted it to take up this whole entire page, let's say because I want to make an actual 8 by 11 print or something, notice how tiny that is. It doesn't really matter though, because I can take it and I can stretch it out to be as big as I want it to be. Let's say I wanted to take up, not the whole page, but I want to take about that much of the page, let's say. No, even more than that. Let's say I'm going to have it take up like that much of the page. Hit OK here by hitting this little circle. And it's going to kind of redo it, but notice it looks really grainy and funky. So I might have, sketched it maybe a little bit bigger, but it doesn't matter. It's still information. I can see it. It's enough for me to actually go in and make a new layer and then start sketching further on top of this here. So now I can come in here and start doing my more finalized sketching. Oops. As you can see here, I can just come in here quickly. I can add a more finalized sketching to this and go, okay, I can already tell, okay, I want to make my legs longer. Maybe even longer than that, actually, because that's more of a kid look. I don't want my character to be a kid, let's say. Something like that, and then I can come down here, basic arm structure, fist coming in that way. Know where the breasts are going to be at, how big they're going to be, all that good stuff. So this is, Just gives me a quick way to work. And as I come in, I can re-sketch over that and make something more readable. But you want your sketches to be fast anyway. Okay, so that's that. Now on to the actual settings of my tools here. So the first tool here is a pencil tool, and you notice that the default settings were the same. Some of them, I have this little wrench icon next to it. That just locks the pencil. Quickly explain what that does. Let's say I have my pencil setting at where it is right here. And so I like the stabilization up all the way. What stabilization does is it stabilizes your strokes so that they're more carefully, easier to pull out. Not quite as what Illustrator does to that point, but it just really, it still feels really smooth and normal, but it just kind of makes it more smooth. However, when you want to do something like, let's say you want to shade back and forth like this, it doesn't work very good for that. It works great if you just want to pull lines in one direction and shade that way. But if you want to just kind of do the shading back and forth thing, turn stabilization all the way down, and suddenly you'll notice you can get that nice smooth flow that you might want. And maybe with a bigger, and I'm going to get softer here. So you can see that it really works great for that. I usually have stabilization up because most of the time I'm using it for sketching. But if you want to do that back and forth type thing, make sure you turn the stabilization down. Hardness, I like down one level. I don't like it up here. I like it down to about here, even here sometimes. Just depends, and it's great for sketching. What's really important here is that the minimum value is 0. Pen pressure is on a straight line. If you actually add another dot or a couple dots, just grab the square, pull it outside of the square, and they disappear. If you pull it down like this, when you have your sketching here, I'll use a slightly bigger brush so you can see. When you try to go big and small, it's really easy to get really, really small and then get bigger and then get small again. But when you press harder to get thicker lines, they get a lot darker than if you have this zeroed out here. Oops. Like this. I can still get really small lines. And as I get bigger, notice it doesn't get quite as dark as it did over there. Right? So it just gives you a little that more control of opacity. If you turn this up this way, curve it this way, then it gets rid of that ability to have your functionality. Actually, it turns it more like, it's basically like turning this up. It's almost the same thing. Anyway, I like to have this zeroed out, like I said. Now I can get really small lines and thick lines. The next thing is what's my actual Wacom settings. That's important. So I'm going to go here to all my programs, Wacom tablet. You won't be able to see it on the other screen. Wacom tablet properties will show up over here. For Photoshop, I have it set in the middle. For Manga, I like it set one firm, and for Illustrator, I like it all the way firm because Illustrator, notice that it just doesn't have a good pressure sensitivity built into it. So I like to be able to get my lines really thin to thick, and I like to do nice slow strokes. If I want to get a certain kind of look, I use Adobe Illustrator for doing my inking, and I'll do a really slow stroke where I can have really controlled lines. But anyway, so Manga Studio, I set up one. So try to mess with the settings here as you're working in Manga Studio back and forth and see what works best for you. For me, that's what works best for me. Right, so that's my pencil settings then. Very simple. I like to use a dark pencil. I like to have my pen pressure set, and then I like to lock it. What locking does, if I don't lock it, if I come here and I change, take off pen pressure, say I want to use this as a painting brush like I would in Photoshop, right? And I'm kind of like doing like a Photoshop type stuff. Then I come back to, let's say, light pencil, and I start sketching with that. And size 3 here, I'm drawing and sketching with it, whatever. Then I come back to dark pencil, it's still set the way I had it before. I don't want that. So what I do then is I go to here, so next to brush size, I click it, click pen pressure, and then I go to my sketching here, I lock it. Now the reason why I lock it is if I decide to use this really quickly as a shading type, tool for a second, and I go to a different tool, and I come back to my pencil, notice it's back to my original settings I had saved. So it makes it to where I can't override them on accident. I can override them temporarily, but once I go back to that tool, it'll be back to where I like it. So these are tools that I use to sketch with, and it's really up to you which one you like better. Honestly, I don't notice much of a difference between the two, the dark pencil and the light pencil. Maybe it's because of how I have my settings. I have a really light hand. I've learned to have a light hand with sketching. I think you kind of want a light hand with sketching personally. and you can always push it harder if you need it to push harder for whatever reason. What I like though between these two, since they're so similar, is this one I have stabilization set all the way down to nothing, and this one I have it set up high. So this would be for if I wanted to draw something, and then this one I come down if I want to actually do the back and forth type of shading like this. That's what I use that for. Right, so that's that. Let's go back down here to dark. The only other one I like to use is a colored pencil, and again, the settings are the same. I have the minimum value to 0. Anytime I have anything set with pen pressure, I always just have the minimum value of 0. It gives me the most control, and I like it. I always have this zeroed out too, usually. So you'll notice here with this brush is when you sketch with it, it kind of gives you a really similar look to, if you remember my Photoshop brush, my Photoshop pencil brush. It's really similar to look, almost as if it adds a noise to the brush. Right, so you can actually use this to simulate that kind of style. Anyway, good idea, right? So it kind of has that similar look to it, and it's great for if you want to add a little bit of texture for painting even. So you can make a bigger brush here and come in here and add and kind of shade with it, and you can add this kind of slightly textured look. As you can see some of the texture in there, and that will give you the kind of almost like a skin texture look to it. That's the only time I usually use most everything I do without any. I do all my texture by hand. So next thing is my ink pen that I like to use, and I have it locked here. And so notice the settings here: minimum value of 0, straight line, pen pressure. Nothing else is done. But in case you're wondering what these things do, is tilt means that as you tilt your pen either from straight up and down to more of an angle, it changes the thickness of your brush. And so if I come in here and I get rid of that, one of these lines, and I pull this down more like this, I should have a greater, if it's straight up and down, it's like this. As I begin to tilt it sideways, it gets thinner. I don't see the purpose of this. I never use it, so I just want to show what it does. Velocity, it's kind of interesting. So it's how fast you pull the pencil. If I'm going slow, you notice it's thick. If I go fast, it gets, so I go like this and pull out fast, right? And it's really hard to make it to where it just stops. So it's like, if I want to make like eyelashes or something, it's really hard to make it to where it just stops. And so it's like, boom, flick it really fast, flick it really fast, flick it really fast, flick it really fast. And it kind of starts and stops. So I don't know if maybe that'll be helpful for something. I never use it, but maybe one day I'll be like, hey, I need that particular look, and then I'll use it. But I always keep it to pen pressure. So let's go back to my pen tool here. And notice that it goes right back to my original settings because I have it set there, so it didn't change anything. Stabilization, I usually have it all the way on for this because I really like to have that nice flow. If I make a vector layer, then I think you can have vector management here. And this will allow you to, I think, you have even further control over that line. And so it's really great. You can still pull your lines really, really fast and get nice control. You can go slow, and you can get pretty nice control over this. And what's really cool about this is if you want to add straight lines, you can with the pen. It's really good. So anyway, that's my pen tool, and that'd be my inking tool. And those are the settings. Again, I always keep it zeroed out here and keep this neutral or straight line. Those are my main two things I would use in Manga Studio. Another thing I like to use as a tool for as far as laying down colors and things like that. One, I use my inking brush. So if I'm going to be laying down color like that, I lay it down like that. Let's say I have an arm or something, right? So let me go ahead and just kind of ink out a basic shape of an arm and hand here, like something like that. You get the idea, hopefully, what it is I'm representing. So if I want to take and ink this, let's say I want like all this over here to kind of be all that to be colored in. What I would do then on another layer, on my coloring layer, put this underneath the inking layer, is I would come in here and I would pull all this outline and trace what I want to fill in. Now I take my paint bucket tool and then just double click in here. And that already does my cool trick that I do in Photoshop where I have an action for it. But this one you just do automatically come and fill in the stuff I want to fill in. And that would quickly get me the shading I want. Anyway, what this brush right here does is really cool is I can come in here now and I can kind of pull into this color. And if I wanted to kind of shade it out and more of that painterly kind of look, I can have that. Of course, I'd have to go into my settings, my actual inking settings and change it as well so it has that more painterly look. And so that's just a quick way to like color and fade in stuff. I'll show you how this tool works. This is the transparent watercolor tool. So this is the next tool I use quite often. And I usually use this to add in different kinds of shading. So let's go back to this original document here. And unfortunately, I don't have just the ink lines. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get some ink lines real quick to demonstrate this brush and its settings. So you can see the default settings here, opacity and all that. I can't remember what is default in this or not. I might have changed some stuff here. So if any of this isn't exactly the same as what you have, you can change this if you want to try it out the way I have it. Under here, under pin pressure, I rarely ever put pin pressure on this tool. Sometimes I do. The default is, though, I don't have pin pressure on it. All right, this is actually part of my Manga head course. So let's take this here then, and which one is the inking layer? Okay, there we go. I'm going to make a layer underneath this. So I would use this brush here, and what I would do is, let's say I wanted to have this side of the face in shadow. You kind of have to push a little bit, not too hard, but a little bit hard to get that color, and then just lightly touch the edges, and it blurs the edges out. This allows you to add form to things very quickly with this kind of almost painterly style. Pull it hard here. You can also pull hard lines. And let's say I want to use a lighter color because I'm pushing much more harder. Bam, you can still push the hard lines and then slightly hit the edges of it. And then come back with the same color as the paper or the person's face and kind of pull into it and get it to be a little bit less. So it's just a great tool. It's very fast and efficient at laying in the colors you want. Let's go way down to black here, get this really dark. And then this hair up here would be lighter, and I would come in like that. So I really recommend trying this brush out. It's just fantastic and great. You want to go between pressing hard and then pressing soft. So you press hard here for a second, and then come in and press soft and kind of blend and work this in. And it doesn't have that really blurry look when you come in and work this in and kind of blend it in. You can get little circles and then blend in with little circles to get, texture type of look. Anyway, it's just a great, fantastic tool. One of my favorite tools. I do most of all my shading, everything with this, whether it be a drawing, whatever it is. The next one I like to use actually does none of these other ones I really like to use. Opacity watercolor is okay. Sometimes I'll use it for certain things, and I'll kind of get an idea how it might work on one of these faces. Let's see this one here. So I want to kind of add like that, and then kind of bring this lighter color back in here. And notice that it doesn't do anything with the light color. It just keeps getting darker and darker. So the one thing that's cool about the opacity watercolor brush is you start with whatever color you want, like how dark you want to shade with. And if you push lightly, you're going to get this color you want, but it's going to be much more close to the color you have actually picked. If you wanted to, make it really light, you can like lightly touch, but it's not going to make it much lighter. Now, if I then pick a white color and kind of come in here, notice it's still pushing that color out. If I start up here, nothing happens. So now I can come up here and I can pull in this lighter color and just keep pushing in. So I'm pushing in the lighter color and I'm pulling in toward the darker color. And then I'm going to kind of go in little circles or up and down and kind of fade this. And you can kind of get that little bit of fading, but it doesn't fade as much. And I don't know, I don't like it, but you might find it useful for this kind of thing right here. Just quickly laying in that color, and then if you want to kind of like go like that, you can, or go back to the transparency tool and then just lightly touch that, or even use the light color now with the transparency tool, and you can actually pull into that and just kind of blend into it to where it kind of fades more and looks more like it's not shaded. So using those two tools together can work pretty awesome. So you can come here and go, oh, I want this color, I want to lay it down. So it just lays that color down very quickly, and it's nice and smooth. And then you take this tool here and kind of come in and blend it in. And then you can take this lighter color. No, I put Alt key to choose that lighter color, and to take it and kind of blend into it so it kind of has more of a blended look to it. So it's just a really quick way to add that kind of blended awesomeness to your work. The next thing I kind of use sometimes is the oil paint. And so what this is cool for is if you want to quickly come in here and add color, it adds the color, but it does so in an oily painterly way where there's like a little bit of texture left in there. And then you can take a lighter color, do this kind of like almost cell shaded look with this brush here. And then maybe you might want to take your watercolor transparency and just kind of blend these together a little bit. Get rid of some of the harder lines, and you can actually add more of a painted kind of look with more texture. But yeah, that oil painted brush can be very cool for certain effects you want to get. I think it's great for the cell shaded look. So what cell shaded look is you have like a really dark color. So we'll say this is the darkest part of the shade. Pull it down, kind of maybe go over it a couple times, and then take a slightly lighter color. Actually, I'm gonna do even darker than that. Maybe even darker than that. Notice I can never really get like super dark unless I go over it a few times. Even then, I can't get black with this brush. It won't, I have to go over it several times like that and paint into it. So in that way, it's kind of slow. It doesn't matter how hard you push. You know, I can push really hard the first time, it's still going to have that same look to it. And that comes down to just the way the brush works. Maybe if you lay an amount of paint, it still doesn't make a difference. See. Anyway, so pull in that color. If you want it really dark, you have to go over a couple times. Then add another color and just lightly go into it and kind of blend. You can even lightly touch this together. And I usually like to get rid of pen pressure on this brush, personally. Oops. And you get that kind of cell shaded look. Actually, pen pressure works better. And so let's say I wanted a cell shade look to the hair. I come in here, I can kind of pull this kind of look right here. The only downside again is the you can't get the super darkness that you might want out of it with the first stroke. And already now I'm running out of, so I'll have to start as dark as I can. It doesn't matter really what order you do it in with this brush either. Just do it whatever like that and kind of that. Let's do something better than that. Hold on. Cell shade look over here. So you can get that kind of quick cell shade look without even having to change the color at all. That is starting. What you do is you would fill in the whole area that you know you're going to have a color to it, and then come in here and then redo it, and then take that lighter color if you need to again. And it kind of has a cell shaded painted look anyway. I don't ever use it, but this one's kind of cool for like doing mountains and stuff like that, and sometimes buildings and things. Other than that, I don't really like it. It's not going to be good for adding any sort of cell shaded look to anything. Even laying down color, I don't really like it for that personally. Just not a cool brush. Indie inks, none of these I like. They don't, I just don't see I don't have a use for them yet. I haven't found one, so I don't use them. But what's really cool with watercolor too, you can also use like, let's say the one that was kind of cool. Maybe this one here. and then turn the hardness all the way up. And you kind of add an interesting cell shaded look. So what you can do is, on this face over here, let's start with this kind of color here. And then just kind of lightly, keep it like that, and then take a lighter color. And you have that kind of cell shaded look. I'm going to have to use two darker colors to really emphasize this though. Like that, and then a slightly lighter color. Like that, so it's fading in. And so that gives it a kind of cell shaded look. And if you didn't like the hard line on the very edge, you can go take the transparent tool here and just kind of lightly touch the edge, and it's going to blend it out. Now you got almost like a triple cell shaded look, and it's where the complicated cell shaded look. That's just a really quick way to do that with those brushes. Another way to do it, of course, is using the pen brush. So it's going to look a little different than this though, but take the pen brush and add in the first layer, and then you add in your second layer. And I'm going to have to make it a little bit less dark like that. And there you go. Now you got your two layers of your cell shaded look to whatever it is you're shading. Then you can take your transparent watercolor brush and get that third layer by just lightly going over it. And then you can come back in here if you want and kind of even blend some of it together to where it doesn't look so, it kind of blends more. It's just a quick way to blend. And you can also use this to blend colors together. Like take this darker color here, blend it, take this color here, blend it. And just by lightly pressing into these colors, it's a quick way to blend all the colors together. And you can actually get more of a painted, blended look out of it. That's personally why I like this brush. It's just a fantastic brush, great to add these kind of looks. You can get these different looks by using these different brushes. So definitely check them out, try them, use different settings. Another really cool thing is how I added the glow here to her hair, which is pretty cool. Easy way to do that, auto another one, is you take the white color here, take your pen tool, add the lines you want. Let's say I just want a couple lines over here like that. And then you take the airbrush tool, or it looks like a spray can, but it's really airbrush tool. And then I think I keep all this the same. I turn pen pressure off, and I'm pretty sure this is all default. Stabilization is all the way down. None of these are checked. Brush density is about 50%. Anyway, hardness is all the way down as well because I like to keep it soft. You can try hard and see what it looked like, but under here, add glow or overlay. There's different things you can try. Overlay's not going to do much right now, but add glow will. And this doesn't keep it to where it's more of a stronger, not as blurry. Let's make it a little bit smaller brush here. This is add a slightly different look than when you take this and have it hardness all the way down to where it's softer. But adding that extra bit there just kind of adds that really bright lines to it. It makes it kind of glow. So this is a cool way to add like neon signs, things like that. Really cool, make cool letters on signs by just going over it with this brush. Right, so hopefully that helps you figure out more about Manga Studio 5 and whether you want to try it. My last thing I'll end this video in is just quickly talking about I was a Photoshop user for 17 years. I still use Photoshop for certain things. Certain layout designs, things like that with brochures, but usually I use Illustrator for that anyway. Main thing for Photoshop, I like to do post-production work. So, for example, to change certain color values and things like that of my finalized painting. But all my painting, illustrating, comic book work, inking, sketching, everything else is done in Manga Studio. I might do some post-production work in Photoshop, and any type of photo manipulation or photo correction, obviously I do in Photoshop. That's pretty much it though. That's pretty much what Photoshop is left to. I don't use it for anything else anymore. Unless someone wants a particular how to paint with Photoshop for whatever reason video, I might make one of those. Let's see here. That's pretty much it. So I've been using Photoshop for 17 years. Love the program, have loved it, have been biased toward it. I think I tried Manga Studio when it was Manga Studio 4 or 3. Either way, I didn't like it back then because the tools didn't work very well. But now they work excellently. Again, though, you're going to want a pressure-sensitive tablet. So either a Wacom, Intuos, or a Cintiq is what I like to use. I like to be able to draw on the screen, or something like Innova. makes a good one where you can draw on the screen for much cheaper. I think it's like $400 or $500 for theirs, and it's even bigger than the standard size for $1,000. Now it's the 13-inch for the Wacom Cintiq. But anyway, so definitely get a Impressionability tab and then use Manga Studio. You don't need Manga Studio EX, which is basically Manga Studio Pro. You don't need that. It's like $200 something. All it does is really give you a lot of the story options and having duplicating or having multiple pages viewing at a time and things like that. You don't need that unless you're going to be doing a lot of comic book type of work. And even then you don't need it. It just can kind of help smooth your workflow and make it a little bit faster when you learn how to use it right. Let's see here. Manga Studio 5 has a robust, awesome set of pencils. So if you ever tried an older version of Manga Studio, didn't like it, I didn't either. But when I tried Manga Studio 5, I loved it so much that I only use it now pretty much for everything. So I want to stress that. Photoshop user for 17 years. I've been using it for a long time. I've been teaching it for a long time. And I love the program, but Manga Studio 5 blew me away. And it can be Manga Studio 5 for $80. That's all it costs. So the price range is awesome, and it's a way better program for painting and drawing and all that sort of stuff. The only thing that Photoshop has an edge over is when you want to do photo manipulation and maybe some post-production work, and then also any sort of photo editing stuff. And that's really what that program is made for, so that's why it's going to sell at that. All right, so thank you for watching this bonus video here for my manga how to draw manga faces and hair course. If you haven't had a chance to check that course out, guess what? Good news. I still have a few coupons left for the 50% off. I usually set a certain number to them. Originally I made 30 of them. The 30 of them sold out so fast, and people were emailing me going, oh man, I missed it. I'm really bummed out. And so I felt bad. And so I made another one of 100, and those 100 are almost sold out. So get them while you can. I'll go ahead and put a link here on this video to my manga course there for how to draw manga faces and hair. And if you want a quick preview of how the course might feel, you can actually just go to the link, and you can actually, next to some of the courses, it says preview. You can watch that entire course for that, or excuse me, next to some of the lessons it says preview. That means you can watch that entire lesson for free. I know that sounds weird if you're like watching this as a bonus video, because it's actually part of the course, but I'm saying this for people that are watching this on YouTube. That way they could go in and take the course like you guys already have. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and please comment and rate. Appreciate it. Oh, hey, real quick question to you guys. For those that might still be listening, do you prefer, and this is for people, you can make a comment in either the Udemy course in the comment section there, or you can make the comment in YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. My question for you is, do you prefer Photoshop or Manga Studio 5? And have you actually, and only answer if you've actually tried both of them. If so, why so? And I'm referring specifically for drawing, inking, coloring, painting, this sort of stuff. Not for, anything to do with photo correction, anything like that, but for the robust system of drawing or painting or coloring, do you prefer Manga Studio 5 or Adobe Photoshop? If you prefer some other program, name that program and say why you prefer it. It could just be, it's free. It could be that, hey, it could be the reason why you like it better. It's like, it's free. That's why I like it better. If you were able to try some of these other programs, you might prefer them better as far as quality, but so just let me know why, because that kind of will help other people determine maybe what they want to try. I know reviews are good, so kind of like leave a review for your favorite program for drawing and painting and inking and coloring, and yeah. And if it happens to be either Manga Studio 5 or Photoshop, let me know which one of those you prefer better. Or even better yet, how about if you tried both Photoshop and Manga Studio 5, first say which one of those you like better, and then if you happen to like some other third program better, more than Manga Studio 5 and more than Photoshop, list that one as well. So say something like, between Photoshop and Manga Studio, I like Manga Studio. But my personal favorite is, SketchUp Pro, whatever happens to be, Paint Tool SI or something like that. All right, thanks for watching, guys.